Hello, Kath.
Lost access to your address book.
My address book is still there.
They all set.
Have you actually done the full power on and off?
Yeah, I'm gonna do it again.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing.
All right, we're gonna get going.
It's funky thing.
Good evening, welcome to the July 24th, 2018 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. To my left is Mr. Carter Falk, who is Deputy Planning Manager for the City of Nashua. Across the table from us, we have Ms. Kathy Vitale, Mr. Robert Shaw, Mr. Stephen Lionel, Mr. Jack Currier, and Ms. Mary Ellen McKay, and I am J.P. Boucher. Tonight, we have 5 full-time voting members, and Ms. Vitale is an alternate. If anybody has to recuse themselves, then Ms. Vitale will be voting on the cases, but she will be participating in all our discussions in both our sessions, public meeting and the public hearing. This meeting is recorded by written transcript, by audio and video recording. Please direct all testimony to the microphone and only one person speak at a time, please. If you don't have tonight's copy of the agenda, it is right on the side table underneath the TV screen over there. Tonight, we'll only be hearing requests for area variances, so I'll go over what an area variance is. A variance is a request that seeks permission to do something that the ordinance does not permit. The 5 criteria that need to be established to approve an area variance are: the variance will not be contrary to public interest, the spirit of the ordinance is observed, substantial justice is done, the values of surrounding properties are not diminished, and literal enforcement of provisions of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. Per the City of Nashua bylaws, a minimum of 3 or more affirmative votes are required to approve any application. Also, this board will hear all scheduled cases as long as a quorum of 3 voting board members are present at this meeting. Any citizen has a right to contest the decision that this board makes. Should we make a decision that you believe is an error, you have the right to request a rehearing. A written rehearing request must be received through Mr. Falk and the City of Nashua Planning Department within 30 calendar days from the day after a decision was made. Should this board not grant a rehearing request, you can file an appeal directly to the New Hampshire Superior Court. Please contact Mr. Falk for more information. Per our approved Zoning Board of Adjustment bylaws, the review and decision of each application occurs in 2 parts. The first is what we call the public hearing. This is where the applicant and citizens address this board and speak to the merits of the case. The order of testimony is as follows. The applicant will have 15 minutes to present their case. Then those in favor will have a limit of 5 minutes each to testify. Those in opposition or with questions will also have a limit of 5 minutes each to testify. Then the applicant has 5 minutes to speak in rebuttal. And finally, a representative, and only one person, those in opposition, or with questions, will have 5 minutes to speak in rebuttal. Please direct all testimony to this board and not to the audience. If you have any questions about an application, they are to be directed to the board and we'll get them answered for you. The second part of tonight's meeting is called the public meeting, where this board debates the merits of the case amongst ourselves. Please note that during this public meeting, there is no testimony allowed from the audience. So once I close the public hearing and open the public meeting, this is where the board members speak amongst ourselves and hopefully render a decision, and at that time, you can observe, but there is no testimony from the public. Please silence your cell phones. If you need to have a conversation, just feel free to step out in the hallway. This auditorium has great acoustics, so we can hear everything that you're saying. Mr. Falk, are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
There's one change. The first case for 976 West Hollow Street will not be heard tonight. It has been withdrawn. It will probably come back sometime in the near future.
Was anybody here for that? Yes, you have any questions?
Is there a reason why it was withdrawn?
They're still working out some of their details with the access to the site. That's all we know.
Can we get a copy of the 5 variants, the reasons for?
Yeah, I think,
Sure. So,
yeah, let me just grab this one here.
well, and then if you have any further questions, feel free to call Mr. Falk tomorrow.
This will be an area variance? Yeah.
Well, it's Yeah,
No.
but they're gonna, it may change,
Yeah,
so, but you
so-
can give them that for variance, so.
So that's the 5 criteria for an area variance. That's another case. But that would be the same. Of course, if it comes back, it might not be an area variance, it might be something else, but if it's an area variance, which it is now, but it's withdrawn, that will apply.
And how would we be best notified?
It'll be re-advertised. It'll be re-advertised. It's coming back in a different advertisement. Newspaper,
Butters.
butter notifications, just like the first time.
And if we were to be out of town and come back.
Hi, good to see you. Glad you could make it.
You can call our office.
It's also on the city website. Under the city website, there's a zoning board of adjustment, and you can, and the agendas are published there.
Okay,
All right, have a good evening.
thank you. Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you.
Are there any other questions from the audience? Okay, with that? So, we have Ms. Estafia Borasa has joined us. She is also an alternate member, so again, unless one of the 5 full-time members recuses themselves, Ms. Boras will be participating in all the cases and discussion, just will not be voting. All right, so with that, I'd like to open the public meeting for case number 1 for Palmer Revocable Trust. Applicant is Patricia Palmer. The address is 9 Victor Avenue. Description is Palmer Revocable Trust owner, Patricia Palmer, applicant, 9 Victor Ave, sheet 111, lot 30, requesting the following variances. 1, from the Land Use Code, section 190-32, to allow a second 10-foot wide curb cut for a recently approved accessory dwelling unit. And 2, from Land Use Code, section 190-192, subsection C, to exceed maximum driveway width 20 feet existing, 24 feet permitted, a total of 30 feet proposed. It's zoning district is RA. Is anybody here for this case? Would you come on up and just give us your name and address, please? Yep. Feel free to pull that microphone down.
Okay, I'm Patricia Palmer, 9 Victor Avenue, Nashua, New Hampshire, the owner, the person that requested the variance.
Okay. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about what you're doing, or do you want to have us ask you questions?
Sure. I had a in-law apartment built attached to my home, and my sister's moving in from Caldwell Street. That's basically it. And so I'm on one side, she's on the other, and she can have her own entrance without walking across the property for, with bundles and whatever she'll have. It's my baby sister. So
Okay. Is that,
that's it.
okay. Is there any questions? Mr. Lino?
I noticed that there's already a section of paved, like a parking area that's been there for a while in that location.
What is,
I think what Mr. Lino is saying is that there seems to be some gravel that was put down and packed down right now?
yes.
Yeah, was that,
That's why I'm here, because I came here to ask questions about putting real pavement down.
Yeah.
And they said, they thought I wasn't gonna get a driveway, and I said, no, I paid for a driveway. You know, the contractor put a driveway there, and that's why I ended up paying for the variance again.
Well, when you applied for the special exception for the accessory dwelling unit, the in-law apartment, it was said at the time that no additional driveway would be put in and that there was adequate parking. And so now you're coming back and saying you do want to put in a driveway.
Unfortunately, I didn't apply, I was the one that wanted the in-law, of course, but the contractor came and he handled the whole thing and said that he could do that, so.
Yeah, I don't remember who it was who presented the case.
It was Robert
Oh, the-
LaPlante, I know, yeah,
Robert LaPlante, is that the contractor?
yes.
Okay. Now, did I hear you say that there was, that for this ADU that you had constructed for your sister, or you had constructed, that there's a second entrance?
Yes, there is a second entrance and then one through my home.
So it's allowed,
It's on the side?
yeah,
Okay,
which is allowed.
yeah. All right, the reason I'm asking is that normally with ADUs, a second front entrance is not allowed. But okay, it's on the side.
It's a side, yes.
All right, that's
Mr.
all for
Curry.
me.
Well, I was trying to remember, you had mentioned, I guess it was a contractor who was here last time, which was in January 9th. And one of the discussion points that I specifically asked about was the driveway or the lack thereof it. And the testimony was, and it matched my visual observation, there seems to be a very wide and large driveway existing on the house. And so I was comfortable and approved the application for the accessory dwelling unit because it met all the criteria. One of the most ones that we've had difficulty with as a board is a second driveway, because that can make it look quite a bit like a two-family unit. And so at the time, the testimony was clear and precise that there was going to be no second driveway. And, so I was comfortable with the accessory dwelling unit. I can say that if the driveway was proposed then, I would have been okay with the accessory dwelling unit, but I would not have been okay with the driveway. And I guess that's just kind of reiterating, because I don't remember seeing you. I guess you weren't here at all.
No, because he said I didn't have to be here. I don't,
Yeah, no, you don't have to be, but your contractor then was very clear, no second driveway. And so that's just a little bit of what played out on January 9th. But I guess that's more of a little bit of maybe what happened versus a question, but I just wanted to say that I was in and am in full support of the accessory dwelling unit, but, I guess I'll see how the driveway goes. I'm a bit uncomfortable with that because our regulations are that, the accessory dwelling unit, one of the criteria is that it doesn't add a second driveway. But anyway, I've just a bit of history on that. Not really looking for an answer. I just wanted to get that out on the record.
So, ma'am, what are the challenges that, again, you're asking for this driveway on the right side, or opposite side. Without the driveway, what's your alternative, right? So what would you have to do, or what's the challenges to get to the other, for your sister to get into her unit?
she'd have to walk across the entire property to get in the side door with all her bundles or whatever.
Right, okay.
It's a one-car driveway with,
That driveway is pretty big. Well, the one that's there now,
The new one? I think she's talking, there's two, so are we talking about how big is which driveway?
The existing.
existing paved driveway on the left of the
That's-
house is
okay, yeah.
20 feet wide.
Yeah.
And,
Looks like it could hold maybe 6 cars?
yeah,
4 for sure, right?
4 for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any other questions? So, so again, just for our information, to get your testimony on record, so what was your intention and what was your assumption when you had your contract come here? Did you assume that this driveway was going to be put in? You said that you paid for it, so I know that you paid somebody to put it in.
No, it was with the deal. And when I came back here I forget what I came here for something else, I asked. I said, listen, I don't like the driveway that he put in because it's like that crushed stone. He just crushed, I could dig it up. And when she said all that to me, like, oh, I thought there wasn't going to be a driveway, I said, no, there was a driveway. So it was a miscommunication somewhere. But I said, if I have to, I'll rip it up. And I could, because it's that crushed stone. It's not really, it's not whatever you call asphalt or any of that, right now. And I was asking about the asphalt, like, would I have to go over exactly what he did? I thought he just measured what I could get at the time. I was asking them, and then when she said that, I said, look, I said, I want to do it right. So then I gave her the check and did this variance.
Okay. Mr. Shaw?
So was Mr. LaPlante part of doing the driveway, or did you have a different contractor doing
No,
the driveway?
he did the driveway.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that, because we had the testimony from January, and Mr. Falk actually was the one that was quoted, is that the information from his testimony then was that they were contemplating, that you were contemplating putting in another driveway, but have decided not to. So that's what we have kind of in conflict, his testimony, the intention, the understanding the board had from then. So that's what we're trying to figure out, so. Okay. I also had something else. So as far as in your immediate neighborhood, your street and some of the surrounding streets, are there many or any other homes that have these kind of like second driveway configurations? Is it something that you know of that's anywhere else in your neighborhood right now, where somebody might have done something similar? Maybe it's not part of having, you know, an in-law accessory dwelling unit type of living arrangement, but even just a second driveway that, you know, store extra vehicles. Or, is that something that's at all common in your neighborhood?
I'm not sure, I don't think so. I mean, I just walk my dogs in just a square block. I'm not sure.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So Mr. Shaw, I'm close to this neighborhood, right? So I cut through there.
Okay, yeah.
I'll tell you that if you look at your map that you got with the, and again, it's just, what a fact is corner of Roy and Victor Avenue, number 1, Roy and Victor, you see on the map there? Like 3 houses from her. That house has a 30-foot driveway on either side, both sides. So it's almost like, you know, it's like over. And then there are other properties that do have these, they're not all in, they're not separated, but they are at that like 30 feet. And you go down the street and so it's not every house, but it's definitely, they're there and they're not that far away. So again, just a fact. And again, I know that I'm saying this, I wouldn't, you know, I'm being honest, and I'm just saying that that's kind of what I've noticed. I saw probably 3 or 4 like that in the immediate 2-block area. Nothing overkill, but I think as you go back towards Lund Road, you see a little bit more on the sides, you know, the connector streets there. But I wouldn't say there's none. There is definitely some, and there are some that are kind of overkill. And I'm sure that things were done right way back when, but. So, just the fact. All right, is there any other questions for the applicant? Ma'am, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No?
Okay. You can have a seat.
Okay.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this application?
I can be late, so which application?
This is number 1, 9 Victor Ave, number 9 Victor Avenue.
You might
You
be
come
here
for the
a
West
while.
Hollis Street one?
Yes.
Okay.
That's been
Withdrawn.
that's been withdrawn.
It's gonna come back in the near future, but it's not on tonight.
Cancel now?
Yes.
It'll be all re-notified and everything, re-advertised. It'll be re-advertised and the butters will get re-notified, but for right now, it's not on tonight.
Okay, so today I do not even have to
Right.
be here.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So, anybody else in the audience, is anybody else that would like to speak with questions or concerns with this application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and open the public meeting. I'll just give you my thoughts. I have obviously some difficulty with this when we've seen these, right? This is really difficult. And what makes it more difficult here, and again, you have to be aware of what's going on, but I mean, I think it's very true that the applicant, you know, was not here and had no knowledge of what was going, and, you know, the contractor either did whatever he had to do to, you know, to get that, you know, this application past or whatever you want to say. But and again, I think that, you know, as I look at this property and the way I look at it, again, it's just my opinion, if this applicant had come before an ADU had been put in, and then asked for another driveway, you know, how would that play out? You know, I look at it in that respect also. I know what it says in the conditions for the ADU. This is where I find it very much in conflict, because there are some properties that just doesn't make sense, and there's some properties that I think you could see a second driveway there, notwithstanding the ADU issue. So this is kind of where I struggle. So I'd be more than happy to hear some more from the board. Mr. Shaw?
Yeah, and I think it kind of does come down to this question of the spirit and intent of the ordinance. In this case, I think is, as Mr. Courier was getting at, and I think the general concern is that a second driveway can oftentimes start to look like there's some support for multi-family or at least two-family type of living arrangement. And so, you know, there is the door on the side, so we don't have the second front entrance. Obviously, if there was a second front entrance, it would just really start to kind of build towards that feel. But, and part of the reason I was trying to get at, like, would this be like the one home that would look unlike all the others if we were to approve this, versus is it something that has somewhat of a consistent feel with the neighborhood? So to me, I'm struggling, because I feel like it's kind of right on the edge of, I'm pretty sensitive to this idea of not allowing the second driveway. It was very explicit in the updated code, and for that, I think for that real intent. But I do think that if we look at it in the context of this neighborhood, that maybe it is reasonable and will not be, you know, out of character with the rest of the neighborhood. But even that, I'm not sure that I can you know, feel certain. So I'm kind of want to hear the rest of my colleagues also.
Mr. Lino?
Well, first, you know, I have to go back to the January 9th application where we were told there would not be a second driveway. And as, like Mr. Courier, if that had been requested, that would have altered my thinking on the request. The house currently has a rather wide driveway that can hold multiple cars. When I drove down Victor Avenue, I did not see any other houses with two driveways. I might have overlooked something, but I was looking specifically for that. I am not inclined to support this, given that, to me, it felt it was out of character with the neighborhood. It's not in the spirit of the ordinance, and there seems to be perfectly adequate parking in the regular driveway without the need for this extra parking pad or driveway on the other side of the house.
Okay. Anybody else? Ms. Vitale?
Yeah, I wouldn't, if I was voting, I wouldn't be inclined to support it either. You know, they have two driveways coming off the front of the property. The one at 20 feet would be, that's quite a bit of driveway area to look at. You know, if you're looking at from the front. And if you did have people and other people coming in, it would change the whole look of the neighborhood if multiple people came in and were asking for the same type of thing. And, you know, their houses could well, you know, support an in-law apartment too. And if other people were coming by and looking for that second driveway, there's no doubt it would change the look of the neighborhood. That would be my reasoning behind it.
Mr. Courier?
You know, we've seen more accessory dwelling units, and I think that's a good thing. I'm thinking of the recent one we saw up on the north end. It was right near the big church. It was next to the church. It was an old house, and there was like I think an existing garage. It was getting attached, and the folks were, making an in-law apartment. And that's like a great example of what the code is seeking, is a seamless, non-two-family look to the home. I'm just saying, I think I was chairing the meeting in January, and I ticked through those requirements, because the second driveway, I mean, one of the things I noted on this was I really call it a 6-car driveway. I mean, it's a huge driveway, nice asphalt, flat, and I'm just thinking, like, I have empathy for the owner, because, I look at it now and I'm like, oh, the doors, on the side, the far side, away from the driveway, and there was no detail of where that would be. It was just, we're meeting the criteria, we're not exceeding anything, there's not gonna be a new front door. Things that come to mind if the application was accurate, maybe I'll use that word, saying, hey, there's a door on the side and there's gonna be a driveway, then we'd know we'd have a variance application. Another thing that comes to mind is, why wouldn't there be a door like on the back left of the property, and then you're only, much closer, or can you integrate the property into the existing front door? Those are the things that, say, when an architect's involved, those are thought out and optimized. It's a regrettable situation here, because it seems to me like the owner's sister wants to move in, that's great. Now there's this door on the far side, which, is 30 plus 20 feet from a driveway. Not that there couldn't be a walk put in there or something else, but I'm struggling to support this, because I guess I'm like Mr. Lionel. I mean, I didn't notice that the large side driveway on Roy and Victor. I just kind of went up and down Victor several times, more than once, and I was not feeling like this two-car driveway. I'm feeling it's excessive, and so I'm struggling to find support for it. That's where I'm at.
Thank you.
I'm open to all the other opinions, and I'm glad we have a high head count at the meeting tonight.
Anybody else like to?
I'm actually in agreement with my colleagues. I do feel badly that, the way it was constructed, and should have to walk all the way to the right, but it is excessive to add another driveway.
Okay, I'm gonna be the odd guy out. The property seems large enough. I wondered about it, and then I think about walking in inclement weather, walking in snow, walking in ice, and I wonder about somebody who isn't getting younger, is getting older, and convenience, so I think about all those things. But when Mr. Boucher mentioned the other driveways, and I didn't see them, but it's just a couple doors down, and if there's 3 or 4 in the neighborhood, then this is not out of character. It's just another house that's going to have a double driveway. So I don't share the same wariness. I am in support of this, and I know there will be more and more ADUs, and there'll be more and more individuals who are getting elderly and with disabilities, which was the initial impetus behind ADUs. And then I think to myself, are they not going to need another driveway if they can have it? So I'm in favor of this.
Mr. Lino?
I just wanted to point out that one of the requirements for the ADU is that there be an interior door to the ADU. So, somebody could go in the regular entrance and then walk through to the ADU and not have to go all the way around outside the house.
True. Thank you, Mr. Lyle, for that. That's absolutely true. I just want to again clarify that when I was mentioning about the extra driveway widths. There is really no second driveway, but in the neighborhood, I just was recognizing that there were driveways that had been widened. So I was just looking at total footage of driveways. But again, yeah, you have to kind of know where they are, and because I've walked through there and traveled through there, I know where they are. Just kind of a little on the aside, and so I made a question from Mr. Falk, and it's just kind of like thinking about what the alternatives are in my mind. So if the driveway, let's say the current driveway, you're allowed 24 feet, right? Total driveway width, right? So if the current driveway opening was 12 feet, right, would they, if they wanted to, the applicant, in a situation like this, notwithstanding the ADU, whatever, said, hey, I want to put in a driveway here, just here, on my piece of property, would they be in front of us?
Well, you get a maximum of 24 feet of
Right.
width, so they could expand an existing driveway, but it's just, we look at the overall width of 24 feet.
All right, so let's say they had an existing 12-foot wide driveway, I'm just using 12 because it's half, and they want to put in another driveway, 10 or 12 feet, but not over that 24 feet, would that require them to be here because it's separate?
It would, because it involves an ADU. It's for the sole purpose of that extra driveway is for an ADU, and the ordinance was just amended to not allow a second curb cut for an ADU. Now, there are a lot of single-family homes that are straight, regular single-family homes that have, U-shaped driveways, or big corner lots that have a corner-type driveway leading to a garage. But unfortunately, in this case, the intent of it, I mean, it's pretty obvious, it's for an ADU, so the code doesn't allow that.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that in my mind.
If they have a 20-foot driveway that's existing, they could widen that existing one to 24, and they could do that by right, but the extra width, and an extra curb cut, if they widen the existing one, they wouldn't really be getting an extra curb cut. They're just widening what they have a right to do anyway.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Falk. Any other discussions? So it appears that the majority would be in favor of denying the application. So is there somebody that would like to make that motion?
You do it.
So I'll make a motion. I'm going to make a motion. Again, the address is not 9 Victor Avenue, and the applicant is Patricia Parma. The owner is Parma Revocable Trust. And again, the request before us tonight is area variance from Land Use Code 190-32 to allow a second 10-foot wide curb cut for a recently approved accessory dwelling unit, and from Code Section 190-192, Paragraph C, to exceed maximum driveway width 20 feet existing. 20 is existing, 24 is permitted, and the request tonight, if it were approved, would bring the total to 30 feet proposed. I'm making a motion to deny this because I believe the variance, or perhaps a majority of the board, thinks the variance is not needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property. The original application before us cited a large driveway, and with the way in the original application, the construction of the accessory dwelling unit was such that the existing driveway would service it fine. I also think that the second driveway in this neighborhood, I think, would be out of the spirit and intent of the ordinance, which is to not have two driveways associated with an accessory dwelling unit. I don't think there's any comment that the board has on affecting the property values of surrounding parcels. I think the board, or perhaps a majority of the board, finds that having a second driveway is contrary to the public interest, given the rather recent and strong language to not have two driveways and two front entrances associated with an accessory dwelling unit. And I think that substantial justice is served by the initial application as it stands now with the accessory dwelling unit without a second driveway. So I make a motion to deny the request.
Anybody second? Mr. Lionel, second. Any discussion? All those in favor of denying this application? That's 4. All those against denying the application? That's 1. That's Ms. McKay, against. Okay, ma'am, the motion fails. You have a right to contest this decision that's been made tonight, and you can talk to Mr. Falk tomorrow if you'd like to do that. Okay? Thank you for coming. So- you can call Mr. Falk tomorrow, yeah. He'll give you a business card, and he'll be more than happy to answer your questions. Thank you for coming, ma'am. With that, I'll close case number 1 and open case number 2. Okay. Case number 2, the owner is, and I apologize for the pronunciation, Abdelitifa Larousi. I'm sorry. Address is 2 Woodcrest Drive. Description is Abdelatifi Larousi. Again, I apologize. The owner of 2 Woodcrest Drive, Sheet E, Lot 846, requesting variance from Land Use Code Section 190-16, Table 16-3, to encroach 9 feet into the 10-foot required side yard setback to construct an attached 14 by 20-foot carport. It's in the R9 zoning district. Is anybody here to present that case? Can you have your name and address, please? Feel free to pull that up if you like.
Yeah, my name's Eric Duchesne. I'm the contractor for Dexonmore. That's proposing to put a carport roof on the side of the garage.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us?
My first time here doing this.
We'll ask you some questions. So, when I look at the application, it's thorough enough, I understand what's going on. There was obviously some temporary shelter there before. Right now, as you look at the property, you know the property, again, I don't know who else is here, but, to talk, but is there any other so, the carport is obviously to protect some vehicle,
Yes,
right? And again, the house is situated at an angle up against the right yard side.
Correct.
So with that layout, was there any other options to be able to achieve what the applicant is trying to do? So is there any other options that was looked at? Or-
yeah, I mean, we looked at it possibly expanding the entire garage, but we just, financial-wise, he would prefer to put a carport on it because of the expense of it.
Right. And again, we're here because it's an encroachment.
Correct.
Into the side yard setback. So, again, was there any opportunities to do that to get it more out of the side setback? Or is it just really kind of the only choice you had?
Really the only choice, because there's an existing driveway right there too, so all we're doing is putting a roof over that part of the driveway.
Right.
Thank you.
And then we'll just note that, that the house is up against, at an angle. So as you come back towards the street, the incursion becomes less, right? Because there's an angle there, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right, is there any other questions from?
So, and the abutter that it's gonna actually would affect the most is, he's the neighbor right here, that's encroaching towards his property.
Okay.
At a 9 feet.
So he'll have an opportunity to come
Okay.
up if you'd like to talk. And we do have letters, which
Yep.
I'll read into the thing. Is there any other questions from Mr. Currier?
Just wondering, how long has the car shelter, porta shelter been present on the property?
Oh, geez, as long as I can remember. I know him, I used to live next door on 4 Woodcrest Drive. So, and I mean, forever. I want to say the driveway and everything was there when they originally purchased the house.
Okay. And there seems to be like a line of heavy vegetation.
Yeah, the tall arborvitaes.
Is that what arborvitae's, are there the arborvitae's on the property line, I'm assuming?
There,
but-
yeah, it is the property line that he planted those on, but I think he actually did it like 12 inches in or something like that from it.
So, in just trying to gauge this proposal, would the edge of the carport be on the,
On the arborvitae side,
on the,
Yeah.
on the inside of the arborvitae?
correct.
Okay. I guess that was the only question I had. Questions?
Any other questions? No? Okay, you can have a seat.
Thank you.
Is anybody else in the audience to speak in favor of the application? Come on up, give us your name and address, please.
Hello, my name is Peter Zamosianic. I live at 6 Lantern Lane, directly abutting Mr. Abdel Latif Laroussi's property. Simply put, I am in full and enthusiastic support of Mr. Laroussi's carport. He and Mr. Duchesne have been very, very thorough in explaining the physical, I guess you could say, encroachment. And as Mr. Courier pointed out, there is a line of very heavy vegetation. It has been there for, I can't remember how long. It's huge, and the vegetation is very high. I really don't see any part of their property, and I am in full support of it. I've never had any problems with the carport. I can see it's going to be very close, but it's fine. I don't have any problems with it personally. I think it's going to actually improve his property. It's not going to be a, one of these ratty shelters, where you got the, not that his is ratty per se, but you know how it is. That it flaps in the wind. It's temporary, whereas this will definitely add a more stable and refined look to Mr. Laroussi's property. And if any of the board members have driven by that area, he's really turned it into a show place with babbling brook fountains and crushed walks, and he's got decorative things every place. And it looks really, really good, and I personally think this will definitely add to Mr. Laroussi's property value. It'll probably add to mine, which, in light of Mr. Davidson, or not Davidson, excuse me, Mr. Donches's proposed property reevaluation, is something that we're all going to be considering. But I'm in full support of the encroachment and a variance for it. Any questions does anyone have?
Any questions on the board? Any questions? No? Okay, thank you very much
Okay,
for coming.
thank you.
So we also have, we received 4 letters. They were form letters, but letters from abutters in favor. So I'll just go through this really quick. There was a form letter that was sent out, and we have signatures at the bottom of each, but I'll read the letter. It's dear neighbor, this letter is to inform you that we submitted the city of Nashua an application for a building permit for a carport. The carport will replace the existing tent, which is collapsing, would measure 14 feet from the existing garage by 20 by 8. The carport would be used to house a vehicle for winter months. Your support and the approval of our application for this variance would be greatly appreciated. Please provide your name, address, and contact information and approval of variance. Please return to our attention. Sincerely, Latif Lane LaRusso. So we have the applicant that was just at the mic, Mr. Peter, I'm sorry, I can't spell it, Peter Z. at 6 Lantern Lane is in support, full support of this application. Barry and Diane Grant of 7 Lantern Lane, also in full support. So Mr. Peter Z is directly abutting to the right of the property, and Barry and Diane Grant of 7 Lantern Lane but the rear right corner of the applicant's property. We also have a letter from Jason Roy of 19 Lantern Lane, submitting approval or support for this application, and then Catherine Toomey at 10 Lantern Lane, also in support of the application. So we have 4 letters of support, which will be in the record. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak in favor again of this application? Seeing none, anybody in the audience that would like to speak with questions or concerns with the application? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, open the public meeting. Mr. Curry.
Initially, just with the large amount of encroachment, I was very concerned. But Mr. Zamosiani's testimony, to me, is very compelling, because, first of all, I was very concerned with the abutter on that side, because it is close. However, there was that large vegetation between the properties, and my suspicion was, well, the abutter's probably not even gonna see anything. But I'm very sensitive to abutter's concerns, and I guess I'd say pleasantly surprised that there's nothing but universal support for this. I would also concur with Mr. Zimosiani that this property is very well kept. It looks nice. My experience is when a homeowner has a very well-kept property and they're adding something beyond what they should, and therefore they're here for a variance, it usually ends up matching the property, which, in other words, it's bigger, but it's nice looking and matches. And I'm finding support for this application after hearing the testimony tonight, because, again, there's universal support for it, and there's a heavily vegetated buffer. I also concur that I do think a carport or a garage is much better than a porta shelter. I don't know if the porta shelter was permitted or not, but by testimony has been there for many years. I think the proposed carport will look better than that. So given the universal support for it, I find support for the application, but I'm, like to hear other opinions as well.
Mr. Shaw?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Carrier, and I think the other thing that's key is just the position of the home on the property. There really isn't a good place to go with any kind of expansion. And I think, if they try to pull it forward, I think you quickly start to get into front yard setback, and you're still not gonna fully get away from the side yard setback. And so the angle, it's again, one of these situations, the angle of the house, as well as already the kind of close proximity to that property line, I just don't think there's really is any reasonable alternative, which is, I think, key in our first criteria that we typically talk about. So I think for all the other reasons, plus that, I'm in full support.
Mr. Lionel?
I concur with Mr. Courier and Mr. Shaw. It looks like a good plan, and I support it.
Ms. Vitale?
Yeah, I would say, I looked at it and I didn't see any other way they could accomplish what they're trying to, as per testimony, so I would agree with this.
Thank you.
I'm also in support.
Thank you.
So am I.
I'm also in support for everything that's been said. Is there anybody who'd like to make a motion?
Come on, Steve.
I'll do it. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Lionel.
Now you're gonna make me pronounce his name. I'll give it a try. Okay, I'd like to make a motion on behalf of the owner, Abdelatif Laroussi. Did I do it? Did I do it right? Close enough, huh? Address is 2 Woodcrest Drive. Sheet E, Lot 846, requesting variance from Land Use Code, Section 190-16, Table 16-3, to encroach 9 feet into the 10-foot required side yard setback to construct an attached 14-foot by 20-foot carport. We discussed the need for area variance to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property, the angle of the house, and where the driveway currently is, and the proximity of the existing garage to the property line. And the benefit sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method reasonably feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance, and we did discuss that. We believe that this is within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. We have testimony in favor of the variance from neighbors, so we believe it will not adversely affect the property values of surrounding parcels. We don't believe it's contrary to the public interest, and substantial justice to the applicant would be served. So I make a motion to approve this variance.
seconded by Mr. Shaw. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That's 5-0. Sir, your application has been approved. Motion's been approved. Again, just be aware that there's a 30-day window of appeal, but good luck. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. With that, I'll close the case, the public meeting for case number 2. I'll wait for Mr.
Ma'am, are you here for the
I couldn't get out. I went down and kept trying to push the door. I guess there's another door. I came in the back, but I don't know where it up.
You go down
I followed.
this way.
I was trying to get out the front door.
Well, if you, well,
Take the elevator.
the front,
It still should open, holy
Yeah,
cow.
should open.
Yeah.
Well, you could go out the, did you park in the back?
No, I'm parked at CVS. I was like, I didn't even.
CVS?
Oh, so you do want to go
Oh,
out the
yeah,
front.
she can't go out that
Well,
front
there's a-
door.
That's all right, I'm just gonna go down and make it.
We can go out this, we can go out here.
If you wait a few minutes, we can,
We're gonna be-
we can escort you out. We'll be done in a couple minutes, probably.
All right.
There was
So there's,
one
Yeah,
set
one
of
set of
minutes.
One set of minutes.
right,
For June 26th.
okay. Yes, Mr. Curry?
I didn't find any amendments for the minutes of June 26th needed.
Anybody else see anything with June 26th? All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the June 26th, 2018 meeting minutes, seconded by Mr. Shaw. All in favor? That's 5-0. The agenda is not ready yet.
Not ready, because we have an extra week in the schedule, and as soon as I have it ready, I'm hoping by Friday, I'll email it to everybody. We should have about 7 cases or so.
Okay. Is everybody planning to be here, or anybody know that they won't be here?
I am not planning on being here at the next meeting.
And I
If
won't
that
be
were to
here either.
change, I'll let you two know, but at this point, I won't be in town.
Mr. Shaw, are you planning on being here?
Yes.
So I may or may not have to travel. I don't know yet. I won't know till next week. So if that happens, I'll let you know. Okay?
And I definitely know I cannot be here as an alternate that day. I'm out of state.
Actually, if you're not gonna be here, if you could also email me that,
Okay.
because, you know, maybe I could
Yeah, when I know for sure.
try to get back to town, but,
Okay.
all right.
I will be here.
Okay, good.
Is that, no, it's the 14th is the meeting.
14th.
Okay, is any other discussion? Mr. Shaw?
To adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
7:22.
So we're all in favor? Okay, so we're adjourned at 7:22.
Yeah.